They say the best way to get even is to live well. But honestly, I think the best way to get even is to watch them burn their own house down with the very matches they tried to strike against you. My name is Elena, and for 5 years, I was the ghost, the shadow, the secret weapon behind the most prestigious architectural firm in Chicago. But to the world and to our clients, I didn't exist. To them, there was only one name, Julianna Vance, my boss, my mentor, and, as I would eventually find out, my executioner. You see, Julianna didn't just take credit for my work. She inhaled it. She took my late nights, my caffeine-fueled sketches, and my innovative structural designs, and she wore them like a designer coat. And for a long time, I let her. I was young, I was hungry, and I believed her when she whispered that my time would come. But my time was never on her calendar. The breaking point? It wasn't a slow burn. It was a cold, calculated betrayal that happened during the unveiling of the Aegis Tower, a project I had spent 18 months of my life perfecting. My soul was in those blueprints. Every curve of the glass, every sustainable beam. It was me. The night of the gala, the champagne was flowing, and the city's elite were buzzing. I stood in the corner, wearing a dress I could barely afford, waiting for Julianna to finally give me the shout-out she promised. Instead, she stood on that podium, looked the mayor in the eye, and said, "I designed this tower as a tribute to my own legacy." It was a lonely journey, but true genius often is. She didn't even look at me. Not once. And as the room erupted in applause, I felt something inside me snap. It wasn't a loud sound. It was the quiet, terrifying click of a predator finally realizing it's been pushed into a corner. I didn't cry. I didn't make a scene. I just took a slow, deliberate sip of my drink and realized that if Julianna wanted to play the genius architect, I was more than happy to show her what happens when the foundation is built on a lie. I went home that night and didn't sleep. I sat in my tiny apartment, the glow of my laptop screen the only light in the room, and I started looking through the files I had kept on a private server. You see, Julianna was brilliant at marketing, but she was sloppy with the details. She assumed I was too loyal or too stupid to keep receipts. She was wrong. The Aegis Tower had a flaw. Not a dangerous one. I'm not a monster, but a structural quirk that only I knew how to fix. Without my final, unsubmitted calculations, the building's centerpiece, a massive, rotating glass observatory, would never actually, rotate. It would jam, publicly, embarrassingly, and the grand opening, it was only 3 weeks away. The next morning, I walked into the office with the biggest, fakest smile on my face. Julianna was in her glass-walled office, looking like the queen of the world. She waved me in, her voice dripping with that fake sisterly concern she used whenever she was about to screw someone over. "Elena, darling," she said, not even looking up from her tablet. "The board is so impressed with the Aegis reveal, but we've been looking at the budget for the next quarter. And with the project wrapping up, we feel your specific skill set might be better suited for a smaller firm. Somewhere you can grow." She was firing me. After stealing my life's work, she was tossing me out like a used tissue before the first brick was even finished. "I understand," I said. My voice was calm. Too calm. "I'll have my desk cleared by noon." "Good girl," she murmured. "Oh, Julianna, you have no idea what good looks like." I didn't just clear my desk. I cleared the golden file, the one piece of code that controlled the synchronization of the observatory's rotation. I didn't delete it. That would be too obvious. I just tweaked it. I added a little logic bomb that would trigger exactly 48 hours after the ribbon-cutting ceremony. But I wasn't just going for her job. I was going for her reputation, her money, her legacy. To do that, I needed an ally, someone who hated Julianna as much as I did. And in the world of high-stakes architecture, enemies are the one thing Julianna had in abundance. I reached out to Marcus Thorne. He was her biggest rival, a man who had lost the Aegis bid to Julianna by a hair. When we met in that dark booth at the back of a dive bar 3 miles from the office, he looked at me with pure skepticism. "Why should I help a disgruntled ex-employee?" he asked, swirling his scotch. "Because," I leaned in, the neon sign from the window reflecting in my eyes. I'm not just disgruntled, Marcus. I'm the person who actually built the tower you lost to. And I can give you the one thing that will bury Vance architecture forever: the truth. Backed by every original time-stamped file she thinks she deleted. He stopped swirling his glass. The air in the booth got heavy. What do you want? I don't want money, I whispered. I want a front row seat to the collapse. Marcus Thorne wasn't a nice man. Let's get that straight. You don't get to be a billionaire in Chicago real estate by being a nice guy. But Marcus was a smart man, and more importantly, he was a man who hated being made a fool of. When Julianna won the Aegis contract, she didn't just beat him. She mocked him in the press. She called his designs relics of a patriarchal past. So, as I sat across from him, pushing a decrypted flash drive across the sticky table of that dive bar, I knew I wasn't just handing over data. I was handing him a loaded gun. Everything is in there, I said, my voice steady despite the adrenaline vibrating through my veins. The original CAD files with my digital signature embedded in the metadata. The emails from Julianna telling me to scrub my name from the final submissions, and the financial discrepancies. Marcus raised an eyebrow, his fingers hovering over the drive. Discrepancies? I thought this was about ego, Elena. I leaned back, a small, cold smile playing on my lips. Julianna is a lot of things, Marcus, but a mathematician isn't one of them. She's been skimming. She has been overcharging the city for premium eco-materials, while sourcing mid-grade steel from a shell company her husband owns. She thought I was too busy drawing pretty windows to notice the invoices. She was wrong. The look on Marcus's face. It was the look of a man who had just found a winning lottery ticket in the trash. He didn't say thank you. He just nodded once, pocketed the drive, and stood up. The ribbon cutting is in 14 days, he said. Make sure you're watching the news. Oh, I'd be watching. But I wasn't going to sit at home on my couch. No. I wanted to see the look on her face in person. The next 2 weeks were a blur of calculated silence. I stayed off social media. I didn't answer the panicked calls from my former colleagues who couldn't find the observatory sync codes. Apparently, the genius Julianna Vance was having a bit of trouble getting the building's crown jewel to actually move. The tower was magnificent. I'll give myself that. It stood on the skyline like a shard of pure light. But every time I looked at it from my window, I didn't see a masterpiece. I saw a ticking time bomb. I spent my days in a small, rented workspace, working on my own terms now. But I was also playing a character. I made sure to post a few depressed updates on a private account I knew Julianna's assistant followed. I wanted them to think I was broken. I wanted them to think I was a non-threat. Living my best life is a lie everyone tells. But I've lost everything is a lie that makes your enemies feel safe. And a safe enemy is a sloppy enemy. 4 days before the grand opening, I got a text from an unknown number. It was a photo of a legal filing. Marcus had moved faster than I thought. He hadn't gone to the press, not yet. He had gone to the city auditor. Meanwhile, Julianna was everywhere. She was on the cover of Architectural Digest. She was doing interviews on morning talk shows, talking about the feminine intuition of design. Every time I heard her voice, it felt like nails on a chalkboard. She sounded so smug, so untouchable. She even had the audacity to send me an invitation to the opening. It was a slap in the face. It came with a note. Hope you're doing well, Elena. Come see what we built. It might inspire your next little project. I held that card in my hand until my knuckles turned white. She wanted me there to witness her triumph. She wanted to see me standing in the crowd a nobody, while she took the keys to the city. Fine. I'll be there. The day of the ceremony arrived. It was one of those crisp, blue-sky Chicago mornings where everything feels sharp. I spent 3 hours on my transformation. This wasn't just a gala. This was my battlefield. I wore a suit that cost me my last 3 months of savings, sharp charcoal gray, with heels that sounded like gunshots on the pavement. I didn't look like a disgruntled ex-employee. I looked like the woman who was about to buy the building. When I arrived at the site, the atmosphere was electric. Hundreds of people. Cameras, news helicopters circling overhead. And there she was, Julianna. She was wearing a white dress. the visionary in white surrounded by investors and politicians. I stayed in the back, hidden behind a pillar watching. Ladies and gentlemen, the mayor's voice boomed over the speakers. Today we don't just open a building. We celebrate a new era for our skyline, brought to life by the visionary mind of Julianna Vance. The applause was deafening. Julianna stepped up to the microphone, her smile radiating fake humility. Thank you, she purred. This tower, it's more than glass and steel. It's a dream. And today, to show you the full extent of this dream, we will activate the Aegis Observatory, a 360-degree rotating experience that will change how you see our city. She reached for a ceremonial lever, a prop. Obviously, that was supposed to signal the technicians in the booth to start the rotation. This was it. I reached into my pocket and felt the small remote device I had synced to the internal server weeks ago. I wasn't stopping the rotation. No, that would be too simple. I was going to give her exactly what she asked for. She pulled the lever. For a second, there was silence. Then, a low mechanical hum began to vibrate through the ground. The massive glass structure at the top of the tower started to move. The crowd gasped in awe, but then, the hum changed. It went from a smooth purr to a rhythmic, grinding thud. Thud. Julianna's smile flickered for a fraction of a second, but she held it. She's a pro at faking it. I'll give her that. But then the grinding sound got louder. It sounded like a giant was chewing on gravel. And then the rotation didn't just stop. It lurched. The entire top floor of the tower shuddered, sending the VIP guests at the top stumbling. I saw the confusion on the mayor's face. I saw the panic in the eyes of the lead engineer standing off stage. But the best part? That was just the opening act. As the malfunction started, every screen in the plaza, the one showing the beautiful promotional videos of the tower, suddenly flickered. The music cut out. Instead of Julianna's face, a giant image appeared on every screen. It was a side-by-side comparison. On the left, my original timestamped blueprints from 3 years ago. On the right, Julianna's official versions. In red glowing letters, the word plagiarism flashed across the screen. The crowd went silent. The only sound was the grinding of the stuck observatory and the wind whistling through the plaza. Julianna turned around, her face going from white to a sickly shade of gray. What is this? Turn it off. Get this off the screens. She screamed, her humility vanishing in a heartbeat. But the feed didn't stop. It transitioned to a spreadsheet, an invoice list. It showed the price of the grade A steel the city paid for, and the grade C steel that was actually delivered from Vance Holdings LLC. The word fraud replaced the word plagiarism. I stepped out from behind the pillar. I walked slowly toward the stage, the crowd parting for me like the Red Sea. I didn't have a microphone, but in the sudden, heavy silence of the plaza, my voice carried. You forgot one thing, Julianna, I said, loud enough for the front row and the news cameras to hear. She stared at me, her eyes wide with a mixture of rage and pure, unadulterated terror. Elena? You did this? No, I said, tilting my head. You did this. I just stopped hiding the truth. The silence that followed my accusation was the loudest thing I've ever heard. It was heavy thick with the realization of hundreds of people who had just watched a goddess fall from her pedestal. Julianna tried to recover. She's a narcissist, and if there's one thing narcissists are good at, it's gaslighting. She grabbed the microphone from the stand, her knuckles white, her voice trembling with a mix of fury and fake authority. This is a coordinated cyber attack, she shrieked, looking at the mayor, who was already stepping away from her like she was radioactive. This woman is a disgruntled former employee. She's mentally unstable. Security, get her out of here. 2 security guards started moving toward me, but they didn't get far. Why? Because Marcus Thorne didn't just come to watch. He came with a parade. From the side of the plaza, 3 men in dark suits, real suits, not the I work for a private firm kind, stepped forward. They weren't looking at me. They were looking at the giant screen that was still cycling through the evidence of the shell companies and the fraudulent steel invoices. Julianna Vance? One of them asked, his voice flat and professional. He flashed a badge. I'm Special Agent Miller with the FBI's White-Collar Crime Division. This is the city auditor's office. We have a warrant for the seizure of all digital assets and financial records for Vance. Architecture. The microphone in Julianna's hand made a sharp, screeching sound as it hit the floor. I didn't move. I stood right there, 5 feet away from her, and I watched the color drain from her face until she looked like one of the marble statues she loved so much. Cold, hard, and completely lifeless. "Julianna," I whispered, loud enough for only her to hear as the agents surrounded her. "I told you, I was the foundation. You can't stand without me." She looked at me then. Really looked at me. And for the first time in 5 years, she didn't see a good girl. She didn't see a darling. She saw the person who had just systematically dismantled her entire existence. "I'll kill you," she hissed, her voice a low, venomous crawl. "I'll bury you so deep. You're going to be a bit busy with your own burial." I think, I interrupted, checking my watch. "By the way, you should check on your husband. I sent him a little anonymous tip this morning. You know, about that investment property in the Hamptons you bought with your secret boyfriend, the one you used the company's emergency fund for." Her jaw literally dropped. She didn't even have a comeback for that one. The betrayal she had practiced on me for years, she had been practicing on everyone in her life. I just happened to be the one who connected all the dots. As the FBI led her away past the cameras, past the horrified investors, past the tower that was now effectively a crime scene, the crowd started to murmur. The Aegis Tower was no longer a marvel, it was a scandal. But I wasn't done. You see, the thing about people like Julianna is that they always have a backup plan. They have offshore accounts. They have powerful friends who owe them favors. If I just let the legal system handle it, she'd be out on bail in 48 hours and living in a penthouse while the lawyers fought it out for the next 10 years. I didn't want her in a penthouse. I wanted her in the dirt. I walked away from the plaza, ignoring the reporters who were trying to shove microphones in my face. I had one more stop to make. I went to the Vance Architecture headquarters. The building was in chaos. People were packing boxes, crying, or staring at the news on their phones. Nobody stopped me. I still had my master key card, the one Julianna forgot to deactivate because she was too busy celebrating herself. I went straight to the server room. I didn't need to steal anything else. I had already taken what I needed. But I wanted to leave a parting gift. In the architectural world, there's a thing called the black box. It's a secure digital vault where every iteration of every design is kept. It's the soul of the firm. If that vault is compromised, the firm's insurance becomes void. They lose their accreditation. They become uninsurable. I sat down at the terminal, my fingers dancing across the keys. I felt a strange sense of peace. For years, I had built things. I had created beauty out of nothing. But today I was an architect of destruction. I uploaded a final script. It wasn't a virus. It was a truth protocol. Every single project Julianna had designed in the last decade would now be automatically cross-referenced with the names of the junior architects who actually did the work. An automated email was scheduled to be sent to every one of those architects, giving them the evidence they needed to file their own lawsuits. I was giving the ghosts their voices back. As I walked out of the office for the last time, I saw Julianna's assistant, Sarah. She was a sweet girl, barely 22, who Julianna used to make cry on a daily basis. Sarah looked at me, her eyes red. "Elena, is it true? Is it all over?" I stopped and looked at her. I reached into my bag and pulled out a business card. It wasn't my card. I didn't have one yet. It was Marcus Thorne's personal line. "Call him," I said. "Tell him you were my assistant. He's going to need a whole new team to fix the mess Julianna left behind." And Sarah? "Yes?" "Don't ever let anyone tell you that your name doesn't belong on your work." I walked out into the Chicago sunshine, the wind off the lake hitting my face. It felt cold. It felt clean. I went to a small cafe across the street, ordered a double espresso, and sat outside. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed. It was a news alert. Breaking: Julianna Vance arrested on multiple counts of fraud and embezzlement. Aegis Tower declared a non-operational zone pending safety inspections. Stock for Vance Architecture plummets 70% in under an hour. I took a sip of my coffee. It was perfect. But then, I saw a black SUV pull up to the curb. The window rolled down. It was Marcus. "You're a dangerous woman, Elena," he said, his expression unreadable. "I'm an architect, Marcus," I replied. "I just know where the load-bearing walls are. And I know exactly which one to pull to make the whole thing come down." He looked at the empty seat next to him. "The city is going to need someone to fix that tower. Someone who actually knows how the observatory is supposed to spin. Someone the public can trust." I smiled. "That sounds like a very expensive job." "It is," he said. "But first, there's someone you should talk to. A man who's very interested in the steel invoices you found. He's waiting at my office." I stood up, smoothed out my suit, and finished my coffee. The revenge was sweet, yes. But the takeover? That was going to be even better. But as I went to get into the car, I noticed a figure standing across the street. A man in a gray coat watching me. He didn't look like a reporter. He didn't look like a cop. He looked familiar, and that's when I realized Julianna wasn't the only person with secrets, and the logic bomb I had set off, it might have just opened a door that I wasn't prepared to walk through. Because in this city, when you take down a queen, you realize there's always a king standing right behind her. The leather seat of Marcus's AV felt like a throne. But as I watched the man in the gray coat vanish into the crowd through the tinted window, that throne felt cold. "Who was that, Marcus?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper over the hum of the engine. Marcus didn't look at me. He was busy typing away on an encrypted phone, his face illuminated by the blue light of the screen. That's the ghost of your future, Elena. If you play your cards right." He finally looked up, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of something that looked like respect, or maybe it was fear. "His name is Arthur Sterling. He doesn't work for the city. He doesn't work for the feds. He works for the board of directors." "Not a company board, Elena. The board. The people who actually decide which buildings get built and which ones accidentally fail their fire inspections." I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the car's air conditioning. "And why was he watching me?" "Because you didn't just take down a crooked architect today," Marcus said, leaning closer. "You exposed a supply chain of fraudulent materials that goes back 15 years. Julianna Vance wasn't the mastermind. She was the front. The pretty face they used to sign the papers while they laundered millions through construction projects. By taking her down, you just blew a hole in a very, very large pocket." I leaned back, my mind racing. I thought I was settling a personal score. I thought I was finally getting justice for my stolen designs. But I had accidentally pulled a thread that was connected to the entire fabric of the city as underworld. "So, am I in danger?" I asked. Marcus laughed a short, dry sound. "In this city, everyone is in danger. But you have the one thing they need right now. The Aegis Tower is a mess. The public is screaming for blood. The investors are losing their minds. If that tower stays broken, the board loses billions. You're the only one who can fix it without making it collapse." Literally and politically. We pulled up to a glass skyscraper that made Julianna's office look like a dollhouse. This was Thorn Enterprises. As we walked through the lobby, people didn't just move aside, they practically bowed. We went up to the penthouse office. Standing there, looking out over the Chicago skyline, I saw the Aegis Tower in the distance. It was frozen. Its crown, the observatory I designed, was tilted at an awkward, mocking angle. "I want my own firm," I said, not turning around. "Excuse me?" Marcus was pouring 2 glasses of something that smelled like old wood and expensive secrets. "I don't want to work for you, Marcus. I don't want to be another secret weapon in someone else's basement. I want Vane and Associates to be the lead contractor on the Aegis restoration. I want full autonomy. I want the rights to every single patent Julianna stole from me. And I want the board to sign off on it, publicly." Marcus walked over and handed me a glass. "You've got balls, kid." "I'll give you that. But the board doesn't like public. They like shadows." "Then tell them if they don't like my terms. I'll take my golden file, the one with the real steel invoices and the names of the suppliers, straight to the New York Times. I'm not Julianna. I don't care about the fame. I care about the work." And right now, the work is the only thing keeping them out of prison. As I spoke, my phone started vibrating in my pocket. It wouldn't stop. I pulled it out. Private number. I answered it. Hello? You think you're so clever, don't you? The voice was rough, cracking with emotion. But I recognized it instantly. It was Julianna. She must have been using her one phone call from the holding cell. Julianna, I said, my voice as cold as ice. How's the lighting in there? I hear fluorescent isn't great for your complexion. You've destroyed everything, she screamed. I could hear the muffled sounds of a busy police station in the background. My life, my marriage, my reputation. Do you have any idea what you've done? You didn't just fire me, Elena. You handed me over to people who don't let their associates go to prison. If I talk, I'm dead. If I don't talk, I rot. Maybe you should have thought about that before you put your name on my blueprints, I replied. You wanted the crown, Julianna. You just forgot that crowns are heavy. Sometimes they snap your neck. I'm going to find a way out of this, she hissed, her voice dropping to a terrifying whisper. And when I do, I won't just take your career. I'll take your soul. You think Marcus Thorne is your friend? He's been waiting for a reason to absorb my firm for a decade. You're just the crowbar he's using to pry the door open. Goodbye, Julianna, I said, and I hung up. I looked at Marcus. He was watching me with a curious expression. She's right about one thing, I said, setting the glass down on his mahogany desk. You've been wanting her firm for years. This was never just about helping me. Marcus shrugged. Business is business, Elena. But here's the difference. Julianna was a thief who pretended to be a creator. You're a creator who's learning how to be a shark. I can work with a shark. He walked over to a safe behind a painting cliché. I know, and pulled out a thick leather-bound folder. He tossed it onto the desk. What's this? The real contracts for the Aegis Tower, he said. The ones the city never saw. If you're going to fix that building, you need to know exactly how deep the rock goes. It's not just the steel, Elena. The foundation. They cut corners on the concrete too. My heart dropped. What? That building is 40 stories tall. If the foundation is weak, it's not weak yet, Marcus interrupted. But in 10 years, in 15, it'll start to sink. The whole thing will lean like a drunkard. Julianna knew. She signed off on it anyway because she knew she'd be retired and living in the Maldives by the time the cracks started to show. I opened the folder. The technical specs were a nightmare. My beautiful tower, my masterpiece, was built on a lie that could eventually kill thousands of people. The weight of it hit me all at once. This wasn't just about a revenge story anymore. This was a rescue mission. I need to get into the site, I said, grabbing the folder. Tonight. I need to see the base-level pilings myself. You can't, Marcus said. The feds have it locked down. Then find a way, I snapped. Because if that building falls, it won't just be Julianna's name in the rubble. It'll be mine too. And I'm not letting her take my legacy down with her. As I walked out of the office, my mind was spinning. I had won the battle. I had humiliated my enemy. I had reclaimed my work. But as I stood in the elevator, watching the floors count down, I realized that Julianna Vance was just a symptom of a much deeper disease. And if I wanted to be the architect of my own life, I wasn't just going to have to build buildings. I was going to have to tear down a whole damn system. I stepped out into the lobby and saw him again. The man in the gray coat. He was standing by the entrance, lighting a cigarette. He looked at me, nodded once, and walked away into the rain. He wasn't following me. He was waiting for me. And I knew then the real game was only just beginning. The rain in Chicago doesn't just fall. It bites. It felt like needles against my skin as I stood at the base of the Aegis Tower at 2 a.m. The site was a graveyard of ambition. Yellow police tape fluttered in the wind like mocking banners. I wasn't supposed to be here. But then again, I was never supposed to be anything more than Julianna's shadow. I used the side entrance, the one the night shift workers used before the feds shut the place down. My heart was a drum, echoing in the hollow ribcage of the building. I made my way down to the sub-basement, past the massive steel pillars that were supposed to hold up the dreams of a city. I knelt by the base of Pillar 4C. I didn't need a lab kit. I just ran my hand over the concrete. It felt grainy. Wrong. I pulled out a small hammer and tapped it. The sound wasn't the sharp, high-pitched ring of high-density reinforced concrete. It was a dull, hollow thud. Looking for something, Elena. I didn't jump. I knew that voice. I stood up slowly, wiping the dust from my palms, and turned around. Arthur Sterling, the man in the gray coat, was standing by the service elevator. He wasn't armed. He didn't need to be. His presence alone felt like a threat. "The mix is off," I said, my voice echoing in the darkness. 60-40 instead of 80-20. Julianna didn't just save a few $1,000s. She compromised the structural integrity of the entire North Quadrant. In 15 years, this building wouldn't just lean. It would pancake. Sterling stepped into the light of my flashlight. He looked bored. "And what does a visionary like you do with that information? You've already ruined her. You've already got your own firm. Why dig deeper?" "Because my name is on the corrected plans now," I hissed, stepping toward him. "I spent my life building things that were meant to last. I won't let my first official project be a tombstone for 3,000 people." Sterling tilted his head. "The board doesn't like the word demolition. It's bad for the stock price. I'm not going to demolish it," I said, a cold realization settling over me. "I'm going to reinforce it. But it's going to cost the board every cent they laundered through Julianna as shell companies. You're going to fund the restoration, or I'll make sure the world knows that the board knew about the concrete the day the first floor was poured. It was a gamble. A massive life-or-death gamble. I was threatening the people who owned the city." Sterling stared at me for a long, agonizing minute. The only sound was the drip of rainwater from the floor above. Then he smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a shark recognizing a sibling. "Julianna was a parasite," he whispered. "She took. She never gave back. But you're a builder. The board likes builders." He pulled out a heavy embossed envelope and tossed it at my feet. "The keys to the city, Elena. Literally. The contracts are inside. You fix the tower. You keep your mouth shut about the board. And in return, you'll never have to ask for a permit in this town ever again." "And Julianna?" I asked, my voice steady. "Julianna has outlived her usefulness. She stay in that cell and she stay quiet, or, well, let's just say she won't be a problem for you anymore." I watched him walk away into the shadows. I had won. But as I stood there in the dark, looking at the rotten foundation of my own creation, I realized that the board wasn't my ally. They were just a bigger wall I'd have to figure out how to climb one day. But not today. Today was for the victory lap. 1 year later. The Aegis Tower, now renamed the Vane Tower, was finally opening. The observatory didn't just rotate. It glided through the air like silk. I stood on the top floor, looking out over the city. I was wearing a dress that cost more than my first year's salary. I was the CEO. I was the architect. I was the name on everyone's lips. My phone buzzed. A news notification. Former architect Julianna Vance denied parole for the 3rd time. Reports suggest she has suffered a nervous breakdown in federal prison. I didn't feel pity. I didn't feel anger. I felt nothing. She was just a ghost in a building I had rebuilt. I stepped onto the stage, the cameras flashing like 1,000 tiny stars. The mayor was there, beaming, pretending he hadn't tried to distance himself from me 12 months ago. "Thank you all for coming," I said into the microphone. My voice was calm, confident. The voice of a woman who had seen the bottom of the world and decided to build a ladder out of the wreckage. People often ask me what the most important part of a building is. They think it's the glass, the height, or the view. But they're wrong. I looked directly into the main camera lens, straight into the eyes of every person who had ever been stepped on, ignored, or stolen from. The most important part of any structure is the truth. Because if you build your life on a lie, it doesn't matter how high you climb. The ground will always come for you in the end. The applause was like thunder. I walked off the stage and found Marcus Thorne waiting for me in the wings. He raised a glass of champagne. "To the Queen of the Skyline," he said. "No," I replied, clinking my glass against his. "To the woman who knew exactly which brick to pull." I looked out at the city I had conquered. The lights were beautiful, but I knew the darkness that lived underneath them. I was Elena Vane. I wasn't a shadow anymore. I was the light that made the shadows dance. And for anyone out there listening, for anyone who's being told just an assistant or not ready, remember my story. Don't just get mad. Get even and then get ahead. Because the best kind of revenge isn't a scream. It's a skyscraper.